Hi everyone, so it's good to be back. It's been a while. I guess relatively busy, but in terms of how things progress, Andrew Yang certainly is on the right track. He did 10 million raising. He's been killing it on debates. He's been doing so many interviews that if you want to catch up with all the interviews, you're gonna have to spend your whole day watching them. So he's really doing really well. Just not he's got the energy and enthusiasm to just keep going, and you want someone like that. You want someone with energy, and at his age, he's got the energy. Whereas the other guys right at the top, then they haven't. You wouldn't say they have the energy. Like you wouldn't be seeing Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. They're not. You know, everywhere in terms of interviews, but um, that's kind of the advantage that Yang has, and he's also very hardworking. That's his focus, whereas the other guys have, they've got their other positions to worry about. But put that all aside, and let's look at in terms of like credibility. Like it's lovely to look at ideals, and it's lovely to look at all these other things. Like this is what debates are for, but the debates haven't really opened much up, rather than childish banter and advertising. So okay, so let's look at the whole wider picture and go, who's actually stronger against Trump? Because at the end of the day, like you want the nominee to be someone who everyone's going to actually vote for, rather than actually making it easy for Trump. So, like if you look at Biden, how many Democrats are actually going to turn out for Biden? And are Republicans going to vote for Biden, or are they going to stay on Trump's side? So it's kind of like that story. Do you have someone who unites the whole country, or do you have someone that just unites Democrats? And Biden's one of those guys that probably you would say he probably just ignites, Democrats. Whereas I wouldn't see him really finding much favor with Republicans because he's not really new. He's just kind of the guy that kind of he's the nostalgia. If you loved Obama's time and you thought maybe we'll bring Biden back to just bring back the old times, or try to undo a mistake that we did by voting Trump in, so that's kind of the whole scenario of why people might want Biden, because he's a household name in a sense. And then let's look at, say, um, Elizabeth Warren. So if Elizabeth Warren was to win, would she stand a chance against Trump? So she's quite fresh, in terms of the one of the leading candidates. But at the same time, she's making a lot of big enemies. Like if you make big enemies, are you really going to stand a chance? Because one of the biggest enemies she's made is Facebook. Like Facebook knows that if Warren gets in, they're going to try break them up. So when you consider how Trump got in with with Facebook, Cambridge Analytica playing a huge role in influencing a lot of people in terms of like targeted advertising and all that. Well, you want to consider if Warren is someone that Facebook doesn't want in there, Facebook's going to do everything in its power to basically stop any advertising that Warren tries to get out there to make her popular. Whereas they might even help Trump with his advertising to actually keep him in power. Because Trump, the only grudge Trump has is against, Amazon. But Trump barely has a grudge against Facebook. So he's not going to really target Facebook. Facebook knows that. So when you consider that, if you make Warren the candidate, what kind of chance does she have against Trump when she's facing Trump, who's an obsessive liar who will play dirty, whereas Warren probably won't. And also, you've got Facebook and all the other tech companies against her, and also all the wealthy, because she wants to tax 2 cents for every dollar after 50 million. So that kind of brings a question of how credible, like she's a great candidate, don't get me wrong, But what's the, how does she have a viable path, like, of actually getting to presidency? Because firstly, she's fighting off so many candidates right now, and she's doing a good job taking the lead. But then you've got all the tech companies, all the wealthy, and then you've got the biggest boulder of all, Trump, unless he gets impeached, then, but let's not consider that for now and just consider it as the present scenario. And then, yeah, so again, I think she's got a better chance than Biden for sure. Because she definitely could persuade some Republicans, and she definitely unites Democrats, but at the same time, she's got so much against her that she's, looking at an uphill climb. So I'd put her chances, slightly better than Biden. The person that I'd say that has a better chance is, that's still in the lead, is Bernie. So Bernie, he's one of those guys that hasn't really gone radical in terms of, oh, I want to be breaking up all the tech, I want to be taxing, the wealthy in an extreme way. He still wants to do it, of course, but he's more the guy that, he's a straight shooter and everything and all that. He's proven to be popular, but then he's also at the same time, he's very old in age. Mind you, a lot of candidates are pretty old in age. So when you consider that, Trump's up there, Biden's up there, and Trump is probably going to use it against Sanders and go, he's quite old, just recently had a, heart attack. And then also you've probably got DNC, who doesn't see eye to eye entirely because they don't see him as a candidate that they have the most influence on. So they're most likely to, try to get other candidates in before they probably help Sanders. But if Sanders was to be the Democratic nominee, he's one of those characters that people would stand behind. So in terms of Sanders, I think if you get him in, he definitely unites Democrats. But at the same time, there might be a bit of doubt in his, with his age, and Trump might go after that, and the Republicans actually want to go for Bernie. So he is, on statistics and surveys, Republicans do favor Bernie as well. So I'd say like Bernie has the best chance, then Warren, then Biden. But if we want to go outside of the top three, and we go, who else has a better chance? I think, in terms of, if we look at Kamala Harris, like, she's not doing too badly, but I don't think she's the one that, has that kind of really, influence and, that power that, really unites everyone. She's got some Democrats behind her, but she's not really someone that gains momentum. Not someone that is feeling fresh. She seems like part of the old, kind of like, yeah, like she doesn't feel like she brings much to the table. But she could well surprise everyone. And then you've got Mia Pete, Pete Buttigieg, who everyone's looking at as, sometimes he's good, sometimes he's not too good. Depends on his day. He's kind of a fresh face, but I think the way, like him being gay, it works against him with Republicans, because Republicans, not to stereotype Republicans, but there's a certain amount of Republicans that probably won't want a gay president. Whereas a lot of Democrats will see it as progressive, but whereas some Democrats might not want it either. So even if he's really good, the biggest question is is America ready to embrace a gay president? I think, and given Trump is likely to attack that, I think he probably stands less of a chance, even though there's a lot of good things going for him. He's been in the army. He's got some experience in terms of politics. But it's a matter of, does his orientation work against him? And that, I think that might be the biggest question. But if not, then he does stand a very good chance, like much more than Kamala. And then we've got O'Rourke, which I think his campaign's basically stalled. And in terms of Klobuchar, she's actually not been doing too badly. But again, she's not one of those bigger hitters, like she doesn't bring the influence that you want in a presidential kind of candidate. Um, yeah, so it's one of those situations of, yeah, I would say Klobuchar and Kamala, probably in a similar boat. I'd say Pete Buttigieg is probably above them in terms of his ability. And then you have the top three, which is, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie. So kind of like, which brings me to Yang. So why would I think Yang has a better chance? So if we go, okay, Yang, he's a fresh face, he's got the ideas, and he's kind of the guy that he comes from like a neutral base where he's on the Democrats' side in terms of like he wants progressive thinking and all that. But his ideas are ideas that everyone could accept. So that's the kind of thing that everyone wants. And it's kind of like the Bernie situation in 2016. And the question is, would Andrew Yang have enough momentum to get through the line? Because at the end of the day, this is a guy who's inexperienced, so he's going to need a lot of support, and quickly before the start of next year. Because right now, as much as I am a fan of Andrew Yang, is he pulling that strength and support quick enough? He needs that influence to really start climbing that ladder, or else he's risking it being a bit too late. And like there's a lot of candidates in the past, so like don't get me wrong, there's great candidates in the past that have come, but do they make a big enough run to actually to make it matter when the time comes? And currently Andrew Yang, like he's done a lot of good things. He's raised a lot of money. He's trying to build a lot of influences. Like he's opened more offices, hired more staff. But the problem I have is the polls are still kind of just lagging. They're still at he's still getting 2%, 3% polls. Originally it was climbing, and Andrew Yang was doing really well climbing, but I feel like it's kind of stalled a little bit because I think everyone's just kind of gotten used to the whole UBI idea, and then they're reverting back to the whole old politics of they're looking at other candidates as well, and they're going, oh, does he have a serious chance? And then everyone's kind of heading back to the top three. So what Andrew Yang has to do is, he's got to start making big hits again. I feel like, you have to keep being fresh. That's one thing about Trump that he does really well. He always gets into the headlines, and Yang currently isn't. Earlier on, he was getting the headlines, but now is he doing that? That's a big question. So I think he definitely stands a really good chance if he can get into the top 5. Right now, he seems to be struggling to get into the top 5, which has me a bit worried in terms of, can he get there? But if he can get there, I think you can have the whole country rallying behind him, because they believe that this is a candidate that can actually change the whole country, change the system, because originally they thought Trump might have been able to do that, but it turns out Trump's just very happy to make the system work for him. So if you have Yang, you're possibly getting a candidate that can change the system, bring much more innovative ideas. And there's a big question of, is Yang just happy to sit back and just watch and see? Because at the end of the day, he is doing, his best to get as much support as possible. So it's a question of, is it making a difference? Like, he has gotten quite a few good polls lately. In terms of trying to get to the debates, he did get a 5% poll in New Hampshire. So it's a question of, is he targeting certain places and are they working? And yeah, if they are, then things are going to look bright. But right now, the toughest challenge Andrew Yang has is trying to break into the top 5. Then after that, aiming for the top 3. Then that shows him having a real chance of being the candidate nominee. And then he has to go against Trump. Like, if Andrew Yang goes against Trump, I think, he's got a good amount of Democrats that would stand behind him. And he's one of those guys that I don't think Republicans have a problem voting for, because his ideas are very neutral. So, in terms of the chance of, I think starting off, Andrew Yang has the toughest challenge. But if he gets past midway and, he gets close to being a nominee, then I think he stands a really good chance of going all the way. So it's a matter of, where does Andrew Yang fit in? I think for me, currently it's, it would be, in terms of who's going to get in, or who's going to stand the best chance, I'd say it's Bernie, then Warren, then I'd slot in Yang, and then I'd say Pete Buttigieg, then I'd say Joe Biden, then Kamala Harris, and then who else? I guess it doesn't matter who else really, because that's already enough candidates. Right now, too many candidates is actually backfiring, because if you have too many candidates, everyone's opinion's so undecided. You kind of want your candidates to be decided within the next couple of months, so you can actually have a really focused campaign. Right now, too many candidates is just dividing everyone. So you don't really want everyone being that divided, getting close to the election soon. Of course, you've still got a while, but they need to kind of start filtering down the candidates much more. Like, within the next 2 months, it should be just reduced to 10 candidates, right? Right now, you've got like 20 candidates, which is too much. Like, recently, Tim Ryan also dropped out. So it's a matter of who else is going to drop out. But they probably need to start dropping out much quicker, or else everyone risks, doing too much harm to having a supporter base that's too divided. Because if you have a supporter base that is so set on a candidate that if they don't get the candidate and they don't like anyone else, they're just gonna vote Trump, because it's the biggest screw you to everyone, to especially to the DNC, for not tying up the system and making sure at the end of the day, it's their job to help the best candidate come forward. And right now, it's it's being too watered down. So that's kind of my view. Like, at the end of the day, like, things haven't been changing dramatically. So it's a question. Like, don't get me wrong though, DNC has put in new, higher thresholds to get to the next debates, and perhaps that might start, discouraging people, and then those candidates will start dropping out, because I think those candidates, there is a certain amount of candidates that do need to start dropping out, or they risk the party being way too divided right now. And then I guess we'll see how things go. It's good to be, I guess, talking about this again. But yeah, things, hopefully we can see some more progress, especially on Yang's side. Until next time, thank you for tuning in, and goodbye.